Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm Bruce Sanders. I'm an expressionist artist and a symbolist. So I'm not an illustrator. I don't say there's a tree, I'm going to paint it to look exactly like a tree. Everything comes from emotion and feelings and my life experience. And the topic here, flowers and trees, visions and dreams, comes from my own experience. Sadly, my beloved wife passed away 12 years ago. She was a gardener. She loved trees. She loved flowers. And she understood the symbolic meaning that flowers are one of God's great blessings to us, but we have to pay attention because they perish quickly. So we have to be in the moment. Trees, on the other hand, are very durable. We always think of them as in almost like a tradition, the tree of life, the roots, our background, our ancestors, yet it allows for blossoms and new branches in new generations. So that was important to her. Now, I feel like I almost lost her again because last year we lost our home of 45 years in Malibu in the Palisades fire. And with it, we lost her garden. And, um, and in addition, I lost over 200 paintings that I'd worked on since she passed away. So it was a lot to deal with. Uh, After the fire, I wasn't sure I'd be able to start painting again. But I did slowly, and this is the second show since the fire, and I wanted to honor Barbara in this way. Now, interestingly, you can see the differences between before the fire and after. Through a miracle, about 5 of the paintings survived, and I've got 3 of them here. They survived because they weren't at home. They were in a gallery in Santa Monica. So this was before the fire, this was before the fire, and that one. This is the hope tree. And like I said, I try to convey feelings and emotions that I'm getting, which starts this whole process. I never know where it comes from, but they really do kind of come from visions and dreams. And it doesn't always finish the way it started. It could be a person and winds up being a tree. But I try to use, exaggerated colors, textures. A lot of these are very textured because I add a pumice gel to the acrylic paint. And I start and I stop, and I never know where it's going to go. That one there is the magic of flowers, also has a lot of texture. Um, and I, for whatever reason, I started doing uh, either black backgrounds or red backgrounds. A lot of artists have a statement to make with a painting, but they can't complete it with just one painting. They may go through 20 paintings, 30 paintings, and we know this, from Picasso and others. I just can't think of others right now, but maybe a good one would be Modigliani also. He painted his wife 50 times. So in any case, whatever reason, I like the black because it makes anything else pop, explode like 3D. And but if you're asking, is this all I do? No, next year I've got my show in mind already. It's called Only Human, and it'll be here sometime next year. In dealing with all the trauma, the joys and challenges of life with human form, and sort of in an abstract way. So I don't know if any of you have any questions about any of these. I do use, I'll make a note of this, I've always used a lot of gold and silver. And I do a lot of spiritual work, even perhaps religious. I don't consider myself necessarily a religious person, but I try to be a person of faith. and my wife had deep faith. And I use gold and I use silver to signify, to separate the everyday, the mundane, from maybe the spiritual or the sacred. And so this is, I've used a lot of gold, including gold foil, actually the material, gold foil. And I've had a hard time finding a silver that I really like. But I kind of like this. It's very metallic, the whole thing looking, but I like the vibe. I've used, and I, like all artists, experiment with color. This one is a combination of a metallic magenta and a metallic pink, and it's called Flowers of Passion. And so I've done, and I think a lot of these paintings, at least to me, looking back retrospectively, because I didn't have any idea what I was doing, they seem kind of have an Asian feel to it, kind of a Zen, simple, understated, and that's just the way this period sort of came out for my work. I also experimented with kind of a really different metallic light blue there, which I like. So that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be glad to try to answer anything.
I just want to note two things. His fingertips are really powerful, and also for the fire show, Kate Powell, CBS came by to feature it, which was really cool. So it got a little bit of press and some eyes on it. It was on TV.
Thank you.
And then yeah, we got about a minute for questions. You know, we're gonna keep this at 7 minutes.
I was wondering, do you paint the background first and then the main form, the tree, or do you paint the tree first and then?
No. Thank you, David. Always, just about always, I start with the background, and I don't have a composition. I I think for some artists, at least like me, it's almost analogous to being a writer, where you have the tyranny of the blank piece of paper, and you can have that block. So I start not with a composition, but with colors in whatever my mood is. And it might affect, I do a lot of nighttime painting because when I was taking care of my wife, I kind of lost my capacity to sleep. And so I would just get up in the middle of the night and I start painting. Uh, and whatever color I started, I put in there. I might splash some stuff, take it outside, put it on the ground and splash. And then I look at it almost like a Rorschach. You know what I mean? You look at it this way, then I look at it that way, and it's not rocket science. It's just I just sort of go from in my bag it's called go from my kishkas. For those of you who understand, it's basically your instinct, your feeling, and and then see what happens. And what I shared with some others is, there may be paintings underneath those paintings where I work and I work and I say, this isn't working. So I paint all over it again, background. And for me, it's almost like an archaeological thing where you have layers of, instead of civilization, stories. And, so in any case, I do the background and see what vibe it gives me.
Inquiries? All right, let's give it up for Bruce. That's amazing.
Thank you.